is the power of Christ in me. From life's first cry to final breath, Jesus commenced my destiny. No power of hell, no scheme of man can ever pluck me from his hand till he returns or calls me home. Here in the power of Christ I'll stand. Do you think?
coming together tonight to share in loving memory of Shelby and the impact he has made on all of our lives. A couple of announcements. If someone has a green Pontiac, your lights are on, and that's not going to do well for the rest of the evening. Afterwards, we have a reception. Everyone is invited to come and share in that. And then also, if you didn't get a chance on your way in to sign a card and a memory about Shelby and your relationship with him, please do that after this or over at the reception. Let's begin with prayer. Father in heaven, I just want to praise you for the wonderful life of Shelby and the impact he has made on all of our lives. A friend to me and to many in here, a husband, a father, and just a wonderful Christian man and what he's did for your glory. And I just ask for your blessing on all here, your comforting spirit to draw close and help us to remember, but also to remember that this is not a forever goodbye, that there is a resurrection and we will see our friend again. But as tears are shed, as warm thoughts are shared, just draw close and help us to draw close to you. And we give you all the praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
In Christ alone, my hope is found. He is my light, my strength, my song. This cornerstone, this solid ground, firm through the fiercest drought and storm. What heights of love, what depths of peace, when fears are stilled, when striving cease. My comforter, my all in all, here in the love of Christ I stand. In Christ alone, who took on flesh, fullness of God in helpless babe, this gift of love and righteousness, scorned by the ones he came to save, till on that cross as Jesus died, the wrath of God was satisfied, for every sin on him was laid. Here in the death of Christ I stay. There in the ground his body lay, light of the world by darkness slain, then bursting forth grave he rose again, and as he stands in victory, sin's curse has lost its grip on me. For I am his, and he is mine, bought with the precious blood of Christ. No guilt in life, no fear in death. This is the power of Christ in me. From life's first cry till final breath, Jesus commands my destiny. No power of hell, no scheme of man can ever pluck me from his hand till he returns or calls me home. Here in the power of Christ I'll stand. Here in the power of Christ I'll stand.
Phil Antunes, and was a very good friend of Shelby through our time at Fraser Valley. And I remember when he skipped ahead into our class in about grade 4. He was a year behind and he skipped ahead and he joined our class. And I still remember one of the first things he told me. He was always good at puns and jokes, and it'll be referenced here in the life sketch, the groaners. But he's like, you know when I was born? I'm like, no. He's like, November 31st. And I said, oh, okay. And he thought that was so funny that I didn't know that November didn't have 31 days. And I never forgot his birthday because of that. And I would often call him on his birthday because of that groaner that he gave my way. But here's his life sketch. And again, just a great honor for me to be here. Like many of us, we wouldn't have imagined we would be here like this, but a great honor for me to be here and give his life sketch. And a sketch is only what it is, because to complete his life would take a very long time, and so many of us would have so many different aspects of his life that would be just great if we could just delve into it all. But here we go. Shelby Dean Goertzen was born in Langley Hospital, BC on November 30th, 1973, as a welcome but surprise gift to Ronald and Janet Goertzen. He had an older brother and sister, Brendan and Larissa. Growing up, Shelby enjoyed camping, water, and snow skiing, pathfinders, and many adventures with his family, cousins, and friends. Favorite high school activities, including gymnastics and volleyball. Shelby enjoyed talking to everyone and had so many questions, comments, and thoughts to share. Shelby and Brendan were co-conspirators in life and could entertain themselves and find fun in many places. Neither brother ever entertained the idea of being bored. From a young age, Shelby was very actively involved in church ministry and helping others. And Lainey, I just apologize, but just a couple quick anecdotes as we go along, because this church ministry is great. He and I preached our first sermon together in Aldergrove Church. We were, 14, 15, when Dr. Hullishuk asked us to preach together once, and I remember that. And he and I did a lot of singing. We were in a quartet. We did a lot of things together at the church. He began working each summer at Camp Chewathan in Hope, BC. It was there that he met Leonie Bunker in the summer of 1992. They become friends and kept in touch through letters until the summer of 1994, when they officially started dating. Shortly after, Leonie left to go to Burkina Faso as a student missionary. Shelby wrote her a letter every day that she was gone. They were engaged in the summer of 1996 and married in September of 1997. Shelby graduated from Loma Linda University in 2000 with his master's degree in speech and language pathology. It was a career he enjoyed, as he especially loved talking and listening to his clients. He frequently would come home and share their stories with his family. He always took great interest and compassion in clients' lives. After graduation, Shelby and Leonie moved to Fresno, California, so that Shelby could finish his clinical fellowship year for his degree, and so they could be near to Leonie's grandmother. They quickly became involved in church life and ministry in Fresno, and in 2002 became the directors of a Pathfinder and Adventurer Club. It was through this ministry that they met and eventually opened their home to a family of 8 children and their very ill mother, Si Cha, in the spring of 2004. In Shelby's own words, in tribute to Si, here is the story of the creation of a family. 10 years ago, she left us, this enigmatic force of nature, whose life was difficult from the start to finish. It made her stoic, stubborn, stalwart, and strong. When we first met, she was raising 9 children to the best of her ability, alone. I could not imagine then, nor can I now, how she did that. Through a series of indescribable, impossible events, Si became a part of our lives and our family when she was racked with cancer and fought on for 6.5 years when they gave her a prognosis of weeks. Leonie and I attempted the role of co-parents and advocates, cheerleaders, in her battle to watch her kids grow up. Ultimately, Si came to rely on us to make sense of the medical lees, even when a translator was present. One memory stands out strongly from the others because it was so uncharacteristic. Near to the end of our time living in Fresno, she was having particular difficulty with pain following an infusion session and stumbled on her way back to the car. She pretended nothing had happened as she composed herself back into her stately demeanor. So I politely decided not to notice. But when she got into the car, she had exhausted and defeated look in her eyes. Her body was failing her will to live, and she knew it. She looked at me, and for the only time, she didn't try to change her expression and hide how she was feeling. She was broken. Then, so was I. Through sudden tears, I said, I can't replace you. I don't even know if I can be a good dad, but I'll try. I will try. Her eyes softened as she reached up to touch my cheek, and she said, I know. Then we drove home in silence like the countless times we had before. 10 years ago, I lost a most improbable hero, a stranger who became family, who so profoundly touched my life, yet who lived in a different world under the same roof. It is indescribable even now, after years of processing. I have not spoken about my own grief until now because it pales in comparison with the grief of her children, each of whom carry glimpses of her legacy. See, if only you could see what I have seen, the things your kids have accomplished and are accomplishing, the care for each other that you instilled in them, the quality of partners they have chosen to spend their lives with, the adorable grandchildren here and on the way that remind me so much of you. I have been so blessed by your children, my children. 10 years and there are still no words. So that was a blog he wrote in memory of C. Continuing on then, in the fall of 2010, Shelby and Leonie moved to Spokane Valley, Washington, to be closer to family and to an academy that 2 of their children were attending. This began Shelby's work commuting days. For the first while, he worked in Colfax, then Colville, and finally St. Mary's, Idaho. He did not mind the commute and used the 3 hours a day to listen to his audiobooks, podcasts, visit with people on the phone. I remember several calls, actually, with Shelby while he was driving. He always said he enjoyed the variety of people, age, and diagnosis that he was able to work with in their smaller communities. In 2014, Shelby and Leonie were blessed to welcome their first daughter-in-law, Megan, into their family. She came with a bonus, her brother, Matt, who needed a home and family. It was a joy to have another son in the home. In 2015, with half of their children off at college and moving out, Shelby and Leonie began actively pursue adoption again and began the process to adopt a young boy and a young girl from China. At the beginning of this second adoption journey, Shelby and Leonie had many questions as to whether they were doing the right thing, how they would finance it, did they have the time and resources to really pull it off, and was it what they were supposed to be doing? Wading through paperwork and having to redo several papers multiple times was challenging, but despite the challenges, they trusted God would guide their decisions. And the process, as they claimed his promises, that God knows and loves each of us individually and has very specific plans for some of us, for each of us. Some of their favorites of the Bible passages, some of their favorites were Psalms 139. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. And Isaiah 43 verse 1, I have called you by your name. You are mine. Ultimately, they received approval to adopt only one child and received a file for a boy with only 2 weeks to review it, discuss his medical condition with a doctor, and make a decision by December 16th. After requesting further information from the orphanage on the medical needs, they had to wait. While they waited, they were constantly praying, as this was a major decision that affected many people's lives. One of their discussions was about names. They had settled on the choices of Daniel or Luke, with it being open for further discussion later. On the morning of the 16th, Leonie received a phone call with more information from the orphanage. There were pictures and videos, but still no answers to the medical questions. As they looked through the pictures and the videos, they fell in love with the little guy. In the last video, there he was, waving and introducing himself in English. Hi, I Luke, I3. Merry Christmas. And that caught their attention. Wait, did he just say that? Luke? His name was Luke? That was the name they were discussing. As the Bible verse says, I have called you by your name, and you are mine. Luke joined their family the following year. In the fall of 2019, Shelby and Leonie felt that God was asking them to adopt one more. God guided again as Leonie was able to clear a number of hurdles and able to go on an adoption advocacy trip. On this trip, she overheard another little boy pray for a 13-year-old boy, Isaac, to be given a mommy and a daddy right now. While there, Leonie called Shelby to discuss the decision to adopt Isaac into their home. Shelby responded with a yes. In telling of this story after the adoption, Shelby stated, this story is about how God has worked here, and this agreement is yet another instance. That I can guarantee. But when you place your status as willing, God takes it literally. Sometimes when following God's leading, Shelby would ask, why? But he always said yes. He would frequently remind his wife and others that if God asks, he will provide the way for it to happen, even when it seems impossible or unlikely in human terms. Shelby will probably always be remembered for his sense of humor and his way with words. He had a pun for everything and produced many groaners. Many times when sharing jokes with his family, they would laugh, groan, and say, "Where did you hear that one?" To which he would look up duly wounded and state in exasperation, "I made it up myself." Shelby found greatest joy and satisfaction when being with people, listening to them, and sharing in their life stories. He was also passionate about hockey, riding motorbikes, and exploring new places, especially off the beaten path. The brothers even started filming their adventures to share with others via YouTube. Shelby will be greatly missed by his wife, 11 children, 3 grandchildren, his brother Brendan and family, his sister Larissa and her son, and many, many other people who interacted with and cared for.
Good evening. My name is Alistair Atherton. Shelby and I were fellow outlaws in the Bunker Clan, and I have the honor this evening of sharing a tribute to our dad with you. My Ying and John, if I mess up, please forgive me. I've dedicated a long time on how I should express my thoughts and put them into words. Numerous attempts became failures as memories began to flood my brain and words began to clutter my thoughts. My heart was not and has not accepted the truth. Dad, I can't begin to express how much I love and appreciate you. I'm sorry I did not call you Dad enough. I'm even more sorry I have not said I love you as much as I should have. As you have loved us since the day you met us, I still remember the days you would spend time with us after Pathfinders. Our apartment was tiny and dirty, but that did not scare you away. Instead, you visited us with open arms. You talked with us, engaged with us, and laughed with us. You became our friend, something we knew little of as we'd always been looked down on. That was just the beginning. You didn't stop there. Your heart continued to grow with my family. We went from being strangers to being acquaintances, to being good friends, and then to being guardian, to now being dad and daughter and kids. That's quite the roller coaster. No one thought we could make it this far, but we did because you and Mom said yes and never gave up on us. To be honest, I don't know what you saw in all of us troubled kids. There wasn't just 2 or 3, but 8 of us total. You tackled us all without a doubt. You took the time to know us, shape us, teach us, and love us so we could become the children we are today. You took our anger, our stubbornness, our disagreements, and turned into something even more beautiful, a loving family who cares and looks out for each other. For that, thank you, Dad. Thank you so, so much. Because of you, I'm here today as the person whom everyone thought I wouldn't be. Because of you, my siblings are closer than we've ever been. Because of you, our entire family has made so many unforgettable memories. Memories that we will all think of whenever we think about you. Though my heart may still ache and will continue to ache for whoever knows how long, I'm still thankful. I'm thankful for meeting you back in 2003. I'm thankful for all the adventures we've been on. I'm thankful that you and Mom opened up your hearts and even more to give me more siblings. I'm thankful for having you walk me down the aisle at my wedding and dance with me. I'm also very thankful that God made it work so you got to meet your second granddaughter, Eliana. Although it was short, I was happy to see the interaction between you and my daughter, a memory I'll never forget. Last but not least, I'm most thankful to have called you Dad and said, I love you, and gave you a hug before I left. I love you, and I can't wait until we get to meet again so I can hear your dad jokes, see your smile, and feel your hugs again. Once more, I love you, Dad. Dad was the first one who taught me about bonds with people. When I first went to live with Mom and Dad, out of the blue one day, a mom of one of his friends from high school called to say that his friend was getting married the next day. We were out celebrating my completion of summer school, and Dad said, if we leave now, we can still make it. So we instantly dropped everything and drove all the way to Seattle. He explained to me that you don't sever your bonds with people. Even if those bonds are tiny, you keep them alive and show support. Dad was the first person who talked to me and said, you're the biggest person if you walk away from a fight. And let me tell you, growing up, that was the hardest thing for me to do. Whenever he found out I got into a fist fight, we would always have that talk, and humor would always come with it. After, he would ask, did you win? My dad and I had our ups and downs. Most of our life together, we didn't see eye to eye. Must have been because of the father-son relationship. Even though we didn't see eye to eye, there was always a mutual respect that we had for each other. We could get into a fight together. Well, really, it was me yelling, and Dad would de-escalate things and talk reason into me. It wasn't until recently that we started having more of a bond and talking more. I realized it was okay to open up, and it was okay to cry about things. Dad and I never really had a talk about God, but then we did. We talked about how important it was to have a relationship with Him in your life. Dad never forced it on us that we had to. It's like He was waiting for us to have one. I had a conversation with him on Saturday just before he passed. It was about why he started going to Bible study. He said it was to make bonds and connections with people because it's important in life, and to have a relationship with Jesus Christ. He suggested that maybe one day we could have Bible studies together. Although we are not able to do that now, it at least gives me hope because he had a relationship with Jesus. It was around when he started going to Bible study that he started making more of an effort to see us kids, to reduce stress on Mom. He would bring our younger siblings over to our house every weekend and visit with us. If it wasn't for Mom and Dad, I don't think the bonds we have as brothers and sisters would be as strong as it is today. Because of our bond, I was able to have a deep conversation with my siblings about God and about the importance of having a relationship with Jesus Christ. I can never thank my parents enough. They completely changed my life and my family's life. When I first went to live with Mom and Dad, I wanted to leave. I wanted to go back to my friends and live life the way I wanted. But when my birth mom got cancer, I knew my life had to change. Now, if a family member passes away, even if we're not close, we drop everything and possibly go into financial hardship just to show support. Looking back, I don't think I would ever be this person without them. If I was who I was before I met them, I would be blaming God now, the same way I blamed Him when my birth mom was going to die. But I have hope now. I understand why, though I see how easy it is to blame God when bad things happen. I'm just glad that because of my time with Mom and Dad, I'm able to understand the big picture of life.
how I long to breathe the air of heaven. The pain is gone and mercy fills the streets, to look upon the one who bled to save me, and walk with him for all eternity. Oh, there will be a day when I'll bow before him. There will be a day when death will be no more, standing face to face with he who died and rose again. Holy, holy is the Lord.
And every breath we prayed in desperation, the songs of faith we sang through doubt and fear. In the end, we see that it was worth it when he returns to wipe away our tears.
Oh, there will be a day when I'll bow before him. There will be a day when death will be no more, standing face to face with he who died and rose again. Holy, holy is the Lord.
And on that day, we join the resurrection. We stand beside the heroes of the faith. With one voice, 1,000 generations sing, worthy is the Lamb who was slain. On that day,
We join the resurrection. We stand beside the heroes of the faith. With one voice, 1,000 generations sing, worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Forever he shall reign. So let it be today. We shout the hymn of heaven with angels and the saints. We raise a mighty roar. Glory to our God, who gave us life beyond the grave. Holy, holy is the Lord. Holy, holy is the Lord.
holy, holy is the Lord.
On behalf of the family, I want to thank each one of you for coming, being here at this moment. We've all been drawn to this spot by the irresistible magnetic force that was Shelby Goertzen. Hockey buddies, children, parents, family, friends, from north of the border and south and all around the world. You're here, and I know this isn't easy for any of us. Unexpected. We would have chosen to do anything but this. And yet, because Shelby's life came to an unexpected end, this is exactly what we should be doing. So we've come, in spite of the fact that no matter what we say here today, to honor and celebrate what Shelby has meant to each one of us, we're going to be left with an emptiness, a gnawing feeling that somehow it wasn't enough. That there are no words that can make this feel right, okay, to make sense of what is fundamentally senseless. I would not be surprised if we were to open up the cards, as you will, that many of them will use some version of this very phrase as you've attempted to express your condolences to the family and their grief. There are no words. And there aren't. Sometimes we're even afraid to approach the family because we just don't know what we would say. And so some of you struggled to pick up the phone or to write a note because you weren't sure how to put what was in your heart into some kind of language. But not all of us would be at a loss for words. And I think you would agree with me if by some very, very strange twist of fate that Shelby would appreciate more than any of us, that if he were here at his own celebration of life, he would be one who was not at a loss for words. There would be always something bubbling just beneath the surface in Shelby's brain, a brain that was a mystery to us all. He might not be the first person to jump up here and grab a microphone and share what he was thinking. In fact, he probably wouldn't. He'd be sitting somewhere in the middle of people that he cared about. And every so often, he'd be leaning over and he'd be whispering in somebody's ear a comment probably less than appropriate in some subtle way, a snide remark, not a snide, that's the wrong term. Just an odd comment. And then he'd laugh at his own joke. For the past 5 years, Shelby's been a part of the small group that we share together. Something I never expected. We went to high school together, and he was in my sister's class. He was a little twerp. That's what some of us thought, and we never expected that we could find ourselves doing life together in such meaningful ways. He became one of our close friends. And he sometimes this habit for semi-private conversation would just kill me, because we'd be sitting doing a meal together, and he would sit next to me. Everybody else is having conversations and talking, and Shelby was not talking with anybody else. He was talking in my ear. And the things he was saying required some kind of response, but usually it wasn't appropriate with what everybody else was talking about, because it was funny. And I couldn't laugh. Now, Shelby would have something to say about all of this. But most of us don't have enough words to find a way to explain this or to ease the pain. It just doesn't make sense. And a few of us that do have some words probably ought to consider not sharing them, because the only question that seems to drive deep into us that we can't find enough to say about is why? Why? Why would God, you fill in the blank? It's a question that is inevitable when we come to deep pain and loss. It begs for an answer that never seems to come. It's this loose thread in our psyche that we can't quit picking at. And that's when we get ourselves into trouble, because we think we need to say something to somebody who's struggling with that question. It's there. We know it's there. We've felt it. And when somebody we care about is struggling with that pain, with the best of intentions, we try to answer the question. Some of us end up ascribing this horrific loss to God in some way, as if this was somehow, some way in His purpose or plan that He intended this, as if this was an insignificant subplot in some greater design that we just can't understand. That God loved and needed Shelby so much that He took him home to be with Him. You've heard that one? Or for those that are perhaps a little bit more jaded or realistic, we just blame God for being mean and cruel and capricious, that He ended somebody's life too soon. Oh, it's an ancient temptation, this desire to supply an answer to the question, as old as Job himself. And it should be noted that even though God did not provide a satisfactory answer to that soul-searing pain, He did look at the three friends who were trying to answer Job's discomfort with answers, and He reprimanded them and said, y'all talking about stuff you don't have a clue about. You need to stop talking now. Many, many years after those events in the book of Job, Jesus comes along and He tells a story that's the closest thing I've ever been able to come to as an explanation for what this is all about. And it's incomplete, it's unsatisfactory to me, but it is from Jesus Himself. In Matthew chapter 13, He tells a story about a farmer whose field hands see the crop coming up in the fields and realize that something terrible has happened. There are weeds where there are supposed to be good crops. And it's obvious that somebody has come and this is a mess. There's a problem here. And they come to the farmer and they say, what is it that is going on? Did you not sow good seed in your field? And in the words of Jesus, the farmer's response is this: an enemy has done this. It wasn't me. God in the flesh, giving us the closest thing we have to an answer when we cry out from our hearts. Why, God? He says, it wasn't me. Well, if it wasn't you, then what do we do about this? Let us be clear, my friends. God did not take Shelby from us. He, in His own words, says that. It wasn't me. An enemy has done this. But it doesn't take a philosopher to go one step beyond that and say, that doesn't really let you off the hook that far, God. If you are indeed all-powerful, all-knowing, then somehow you are still ultimately responsible for this. And if God were to speak audibly today, He might well say, you're right. I'm not going to hide from this. He never does in the words of Scripture. But the paradox of a God who says, I didn't do this, and yet I am not any less than I was for you knowing that I didn't do it. The paradox brings us back to the heart of a God that we can start to understand in some small way. The truth is this: there is more than just pain and evil in this world. Are you hearing me? That is a reality, and we're very, very in touch with that in a moment like this where we're experiencing a loss. But there is more than evil and pain. There is also love and good. Is there not? And God is also ultimately responsible for that, right? Not just the bad, but also the good. And the fact that there is death and evil in the same world where there is life and love, it may be enough to make our heads spin. And I will remind you again, God doesn't attempt to explain that away. In fact, when Job comes to God and he says, you owe me an explanation, God smiles, I imagine pats him on the head, and then proceeds to boggle his mind for chapter after chapter. The point being this: you don't have enough perspective to understand the answer if I gave it to you. It's over your head. Oh, I don't like hearing that, do you? I like to believe that God owes me something. And God says, I don't. I love you. I care about you. But I cannot help you understand what you can't perceive yet. Because you and I are, after all, rather small creatures with very short lives in the grand scheme of things, living on a small planet in the corner of a rather small galaxy, in a universe we can't even see the boundaries of, and God says, I spoke that into existence, now deal with that. He has never explained the paradox sufficiently, but he has done this. He has repeatedly demonstrated which of these two realities, evil and death and destruction, or life and goodness and truth, which of these two is the more powerful, the more long-lasting, the original. I love the way John introduces Jesus in his gospel. The other gospels, Matthew and Luke, they tell the story of Jesus' birth. Mark, he just dives right into what Jesus started to do. But John says, let me tell you who this guy is. He described him in this way. Verse 4 and 5 of John chapter 1, the Word gave life to everything that was created, and his life brought light to everyone. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness can never extinguish it. That's Jesus. He certainly demonstrated that life and love wins. You've heard it in the music today. He came himself. He went through the worst that this world had to throw at him, including death, and life and love still won. He's alive. Death couldn't hold him. But that's not the only way he demonstrates the enduring power of life. He demonstrates it every time another human being chooses to live the kind of love that Shelby demonstrated to everybody around him. Everybody. It was God in Shelby that made him the kind of friend and brother that was loyal and present and said, it's worth traveling hours to maintain connections. It was God in Shelby that opened up his heart and his home to a family across the street and said, "You're not just those people I know, you're my family." It was God in Shelby that sent him halfway around the world in search of more children who needed somebody to love them. And it was God and will be God in you and in me when we choose to sit with Lainey or the children and just be present instead of trying to explain why this happened. No, God has not chosen to explain himself or his actions to us, but he has chosen to be with us. That's one of the reasons why Shelby, as a Seventh-day Adventist Christian, believed what he did about what happens when we die. And at this point, he would be quick to observe that it probably doesn't matter to the people who have died anyway, and so it's probably not that relevant. But that would be one of those little offhanded comments he would toss in there. We talk about this stuff because it matters to us who are still here. And in a world where the vast majority of Christians believe in some version of the soul going on before the rest of us to heaven, and a good many others who say, who knows, it's just the end, it's over. Shelby believed that death he's experiencing at this moment is more like a sleep than anything else. Why did he believe that? I would never wish to take from you or anyone else the thoughts that help you endure this loss and what helps you get through it. But I will share with you why Shelby believed what he did. Why he accepted the idea that this is a state of unconsciousness. He knew that the story isn't finished yet. That's why. That we're in the middle of something much bigger than any of us. We're in the middle of something that's happening that has a lot of twists and turns and difficulties and struggles. It's a big story. It's the big story about life and love. It's the story about what God is up to. It's the story about how God is putting things back together again. And he knew from what Jesus did and what God has promised that life and love wins in the end. He didn't have any question about that. But we're not there yet. We're stuck in the middle. And we can't see the end of the story. And he wasn't the kind of man who would want to go ahead and get his final reward while the rest of us had to suffer. He just wouldn't do it. And so he trusted God enough to live in the middle of the story. He lived in the middle of the story every day. You look at him, why in the world did you do that, Shelby? Why have you chosen the choice? I asked him these questions again and again sometimes when we talk. And he look at me, he get a little twinkle in his eye and say, I don't know. It seemed like the right thing to do. He trusted God enough to live in the middle of the story. And he's going to rest in the middle of the story until God is ready to write the ending for all of us. And while he lived, he loved. Because he believed that there is more than evil and death in this world. And if he were here, instead of me, he would look each one of you in the eye with that look that he'd get when he rarely, but occasionally would get very serious. And he would challenge you and me to do the same, to live and love. Choose to live with everything you have. Choose to love with the love, not that you have, because it's not enough. Love with the love that God gave you. Don't try to answer the questions that God hasn't given you the answers to. But live in love with everything you've got, with the strength he's granted you for today, and that's enough. So here we come back to full circle. The truth that words, as many as we've already shared and as much as we can say, are really not worth enough to make this make sense. All that is left is what we will do with this action. And if we would honor Shelby, going forward from today, carrying the pain that we will carry, it's not going to be the words that comfort us, the witty retorts, the droll observations, although they will help bring humor to a difficult path. We'll honor him best by living and loving in the same faith that he did. And what we can all say together is that today is not a final goodbye with Shelby. It's a temporary parting that says, until we meet again. And that's how we can choose to celebrate his life.
Show me all you got. I wanna see you lie inside of your beating heart. Won't you come back here tonight? It's who you are. This is where you belong. We'll carry on. We'll carry on. Belong in this world together, we'll carry on while living with wild hearts. Show me all you got. I wanna see you lie inside of your beating heart. You come back here tonight. It's who you are. And this is where you belong. We'll carry on. We'll carry on. We'll carry on. Say it loud, say it loud. We'll go down to the river. We belong in this world together. We'll carry on while living with wild hearts. Say it loud, say it loud. We'll go down to the river. We belong in this world together. We'll carry on. Yeah, living with wild hearts. Go down the same road. Make our world. Seems the best place to start. Living with wild hearts. Go down the same road. Make our world. Seems the best place to start. Living with wild hearts. Say it loud, say it loud. Go down to the make our world. In this world, seems the best place to start. While living with wild hearts. Say it loud, say it loud. Go down to the make our world. In this world, seems the best place to start. While living with wild hearts.
One day you'll make everything new, Jesus. One day you will bind every wound. The former things shall all pass away. No more tears. One day you'll make sense of it all, Jesus. One day every question resolved, and every anxious thought left behind. No more fear. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When one day we will see face to face Jesus. Is there a greater vision of grace? And in a moment we shall be changed on that day. And one day we'll be free, free indeed. Jesus, one day all this struggle will cease. And we will see your glory revealed on that day. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout the victory. It's one day we will see face to face Jesus. Is there a greater vision of grace? And in a moment we shall be changed. And in a moment we shall be changed on that day. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout the victory. One more time. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout the victory.
Would you pray with me? God, we've come to a pause, an official conclusion to what I hope will continue, not just for moments or hours, but for weeks and months and years to come. The celebration of life. We've spent a few moments focusing on the whole that is present in our experience now because Shelby's not here. But I pray that it has helped us realize two things. One, that it wasn't that difficult to realize we're still here. The one that's even more important than that, to realize you're still here. And we need you because it hurts. And you have arms that can comfort us. We need you because we have questions. And we need somebody to ask them to and shout them at, even when you don't always answer the way we wish. And we need you because we need somebody to call us forward into a new day, step at a time, taking life as it comes, not as we planned it all the time, but as it is, with honesty, with courage, with a smile, a little twinkle in our eye, and enough courage to find out what lies around the next bend. That's how you created Shelby. And if you've inspired anything in us, help us to do the same. Till we can see him and you again face to face. And we'll be able to catch him up on many of the things that he's going to miss. And we'll be able to celebrate again. Thank you, Jesus, for your comfort and your courage. Amen. You're invited to join the family. Go ahead, Casey. At the reception, cross the parking lot in the gymnasium. Do remember that there are cards there. And in lieu of having the chance for all of you to share stories, which would take us another 4 or 5 hours to just get started, we want to invite you to write those stories on those cards, hang them up on the wall next to the pictures. Enjoy the pictures, enjoy the food, enjoy reconnecting with friends you haven't seen in a while, and hug the family. Tell them your stories and share your love with them. We'll see you over on the other side of the parking lot.